The new independent report is exposing some of the worst horror stories yet about veterans' care in America, and it reveals some very shocking claims by the VA that patient neglect did not affect the quality of care. Our senior investigative correspondent, Drew Griffin's been reporting on this crisis. He's brought so many of these problems to light. He's joining us now. What's the latest with this new report, Drew?
Wolf, the Office of Special Counsel, which protects government whistleblowers and investigates their claims, sent a pretty damning letter to the White House today claiming that the Veterans Administration has ignored whistleblower complaints for years, has refused to admit harm was being done when patients were being denied care, and most importantly, seems to be telling the White House the VA can't be trusted to investigate itself. Among the worst documented of the VA horror stories comes from Brockton, Massachusetts, where two veterans languished inside a psychiatric facility for years without treatment. One of them was there for 8 years after he was admitted before he got his first psychiatric evaluation. Citing a troubling pattern, the letter from the Office of Special Counsel to President Obama says veterans' health and safety has been unnecessarily put at risk because the VA refuses to admit that problems reported by whistleblowers could impact the health of patients. That is something CNN learned firsthand from whistleblowers across the country, like Brian Turner. As a scheduling clerk at the VA hospital in San Antonio, Texas, he saw how appointment times were being manipulated to hide excessive waits for care. He also saw how some veterans were suffering because of it. Yet when he blew the whistle, he says he was shut up.
There was never a response back except for to get a direct order not to say anything else to anyone.
Shut you up?
They shut me up the very next day.
The very next day?
The very next morning I was called into an office and told not to email another person.
The Office of Special Counsel said it is currently investigating 50 whistleblower cases that allege threat to patient health or safety. In Jackson, Mississippi, whistleblowers brought forth a laundry list of complaints, including unlawful prescriptions for narcotics, unsterile medical equipment, and chronic staffing shortages. In Grand Junction, Colorado, the drinking water was tainted with Legionella bacteria. And in Montgomery, Alabama, a lung doctor just copied over patient readings from previous appointments in 1,200 records instead of putting in current information. Yet in case after case, the VA's internal medical review agency refused to admit any patient was harmed and failed to use information from whistleblowers to identify and address systemic concerns that impact patient care. Wolf, the Office of Special Counsel is asking that a high official at the VA be put in charge of taking these whistleblower complaints and their allegations seriously and doing something about them. The White House responded by saying it's accepted this letter and is sharing the concerns with the VA. Wolf?
Pretty shocking stuff. Drew Griffin, thanks very much. Members of Congress now are making the VA scandal a top priority. We're joined by the chairman of the House Veterans Affairs Committee, Congressman Jeff Miller of Florida. When you saw this report, what did you think, Congressman?
Well, obviously it angers anybody that watches a report like that, but I'm not surprised because we've heard from whistleblower after whistleblower all across the country. When they bring information forward, there is a campaign to shut them up. Basically, they're said to be disgruntled employees, and they've been asked to do something extra, so they're just trying to cause trouble for the bosses. It's not the way to get the problems solved that exist at VA today.
So there's suggestion that maybe not one, but two patients in psychiatric wards, units at VA hospitals didn't actually see a doctor or psychiatrist for 8 years. You saw that allegation. What was your reaction to that?
Can you imagine somebody being put into an institution and then not being treated for the very issue that they're there for? It boggles your mind in an agency that apparently every single superior leader in that agency has received the best of types of reviews that they could have gotten, and I would guarantee you, if we dig into it, somebody there that was responsible for the oversight got a bonus.
You know, in this report, there also, you get the reaction from the Department of Veterans Affairs. They say there's no real evidence that despite some of these problems that veterans' health was negatively impacted. I find that hard to believe. I assume you do as well.
I do, and I will tell you this. When the Phoenix story first broke, we found out from within the central office in Washington that their whole idea of trying to tamp down the committee's request was to try to prove that nobody had been harmed by the delay in care. Well, we already know there have been 23 veterans that have died in this country because of delays in care, and that's what, instead of trying to focus on fixing the problem, they were trying to come up with a way to spin their way out of the crisis that's here. The fact remains, there are thousands of veterans out there that did not receive the care that they were supposed to receive, and the people that are responsible for that delayed care are still on the job today.
You know, you heard in Drew's report of this report that came out, really horrible conditions at VA hospitals, Massachusetts, Colorado, Mississippi, including unsanitary medical equipment, tainted drinking water. Is this a nationwide problem, or are these simply isolated incidents, exceptions to the rule?
No, I don't want to think that it is an isolated incident, because that's exactly what Secretary Shinseki said about the issue of Phoenix. I have been to VA medical centers across this country, some in my own state of Florida, where in fact there have been sanitary issues and sterilization problems. The problem is people are not being held accountable for mistakes that are made that could have been prevented, and all they want to talk about at VA is going through and retraining more people, giving people a little more education. No, this is a culture within the VA that acceptable behavior is the norm, not the exception.
You've got hearings coming up, is that right?
I have a hearing tonight, as a matter of fact, that we're going to be talking about their ability to handle this backlog. How did we get here? What are you doing right now to try to solve the situation? They have not given us a brief yet, even though we've been asking for it for weeks, trying to find out what are you doing to fix the problem.
Well, we'll be monitoring your hearing, and we'll stay in close touch, Congressman. Thanks very much. Appreciate what you're doing on behalf of veterans all over the country.
Thank you, Wolf.
CNN